Right, well, it's unstable. Like I'm interested.
Good evening, welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, by fans, for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. I'm your host tonight, Brian Archer. As always, we'd encourage you to get onto the Gersnet website and check out our forums for all your latest Rangers news and discussions. We're live tonight on the YouTube channel, and we'd also ask that you continue to share the pod on social media, spread the word, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Before I introduce my guests for tonight, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand. And for more information on that, email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, now to bring in my guests. Joining me tonight is firstly Stewart Weir. Stewart, how's things?
Good evening. Yes, Brian. I'm always intrigued or amused when I hear you referring to the pod, because I used to have a colleague, the pod, the Prince of Darkness, Alan Davidson, and he would have been totally bemused by all this technology and the likes. A man who used to slap his computer screen regularly of a Monday morning or a Thursday afternoon when it wasn't working quick enough. So goodness knows what he would have made of all of this.
Well, the wonders of modern technology. also joining us tonight is Iain Duff. Iain, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I've been grappling with technology as well tonight, so I managed to get my head around it. That's what happens when you have the elder statesman of the podcast on.
I think I might beat you in that one.
Well, thankfully we both managed to get the technology working. Obviously we're here to talk about yesterday's game, a 3-1 win for Rangers over Dundee. First thing I'll get your thoughts on is the team selection. I was a bit surprised with Goldson coming out. The manager said they'd give him a rest, and Stewart coming in. Coming to you first. Were you a bit surprised on the starting 11?
No, I think Goldson. I think he's been overplayed over the last few seasons. I mean, he's just been getting played every week, and he never really got a break. So I think it's probably a good idea to give him a rest in games where we can, and give some of the other guys a run out. I'm still not convinced with Goldson, but he's probably still our best bet at centre half. So I think that, I think the way things are going with injuries is probably quite right to not take any risks with anyone else if we can avoid it.
Yeah, it seemed like the manager just thought this was a good opportunity to give Goldson a bit of a rest. As you say, he does seem to play every other week. Stuart, there was a bit of kind of question in the press conference post-match about the start of the game. Clement seemed to think we started pretty well. To be honest, I kind of agree with him. I thought in that first minute, I thought we started really well. Cifuentes had the shot that the Dundee goalkeeper saved, but then Dundee with their first attack, basically, Butland was forced into an excellent save, and we conceded a goal from the resulting corner. It was a really poor goal to lose. We never really dealt with the ball into the box at any point. Is it a concern for you that we don't seem to be starting games all that well, and that's a few occasions now where we've conceded the first goal?
I think losing that first goal, I think the thoughts of it's a good time to rest Goldson were suddenly questioned rather rapidly. I thought losing the goal actually might have done Rangers a favour, because it meant that they actually had to chase the game and get back into it. I think if they made what's tended to happen over a number of seasons is Rangers make a bright start and then just tail off, and the urgency level goes down. They just, you go back to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's time, you go back, to Beale's time. They would play the horseshoe, play the ball around the park, and try and find an opening. If it was 0-0, I think when they went one down, there was all of a sudden it was like, we need to get back into this game, because I don't think the Rangers team, even though they're unbeaten, currently under new management, I still don't think they trust themselves to not to give other teams an opportunity. I think they really know that they have to be in a game right from the off. So I think it might have worked in Rangers' favour. And by the end of the half, you saw that they were actually, once he'd even equalised, again, there was no tailing off. They actually kept pressing and were comfortable in the game by half time, thankfully, because after the sending off, it was anything could have happened in the second half. But I think, in fact, if it had been still one each at half time with a man down, I think they might have toiled.
Yeah, Iain, Stewart mentioned the equaliser there. Obviously, Dessner scores it with, for me, what was a terrific finish. And I'm wondering could this be the moment that gives him the confidence to go on a run and kind of stake a claim? He's obviously going to play a lot more minutes now with Danilo out. And the thing that I'm kind of wondering more about is the manner of that finish and the fact that it was such a good goal. It wasn't, a deflection or one that just bounces off his backside and goes in. It was a real proper striker's goal. Does that maybe give him a bit more confidence to go on a bit of a run?
Well, I hope so. I think what the sort of key thing of that goal was that he didn't really have enough lot of time to think about it, which is probably a good thing where he's concerned. I think when he's probably quite instinctive and he lashed at it, caught it really well, and it sailed into the net. He didn't have time to think, right, where am I going to put this, or have that extra time to doubt himself, perhaps. So he just hit it and it went in, and that was pretty straightforward. So yeah, let's hope so, because he can't be that bad a player. He's not. There are signs there that he's a decent enough player, and for whatever you think of whether he's worth the what we've paid for him to sign him, but there must be something there that it was enough to attract attention. So his strikers are playoff confidence, don't they? So hopefully that will give him a bit of a boost. Yeah, I mean, I think there's the seeds of a good player in there, and whether he would be the first choice or not is clearly, I don't think he would be, and I think we also need to look at strengthening that position and come January if we can. But yeah, hopefully it'll give him over the next few weeks a bit of a boost, because obviously it's a big few weeks coming up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, as you say, over the next few weeks how that kind of plays out. He's probably going to need to play a few more minutes with Danilo out, so hopefully that gives him the confidence to go on a bit of a run. Now, we were awarded a penalty in the 26th minute when a corner came in and Seaman's shirt appears to be pulled. The refs asked to go and have another look at it, and on the VAR monitor decides it's a penalty. Now, the Dundee manager wasn't particularly happy with this. He mentioned that in the press conference afterwards. He felt that basically the images that the VAR show the referee are a bit deceiving, and he kind of felt that that's what makes him give the penalty. And he mentions that he doesn't take the whole context into account, which I wasn't really sure what point he was trying to get at there. Stewart, what did you think of the incident? Does the Dundee manager have a point here, or was it for you? Was it a clear penalty?
I think when you see the replay back, I am kind of bemused as to how the Dundee manager saw it in a particular way. I think you would say afterwards he would see it that way, wouldn't he? If there's a penalty given against your defender for basically dangling off the front of a Rangers player's jersey. You know, it wasn't defying gravity at one point in time. It was actually being held up by Seamer. And the fact he was, to use an old-fashioned expression, dripping off his shirt. I thought it was a penalty, you know, and I think, you know, VAR, I am unconvinced by it. And even yesterday getting that, you know, decision, I think, the referee didn't see it at the time. The way that the football is governed now and who takes the decisions on the pitch, there's more off-field decisions made with somebody actually saying to the referee, you know, you should come and have a look at this. I think once you see the rerun of it, and they actually use the freeze frame at one point in time as well, I think the evidence is pretty damning. So if it was, if that had happened against your team, you'd have been screaming about your defender. Why do you need to grab his shirt? And I think ultimately, we've actually seen one or two penalties in different matches given now for shirt pulling. I think, I mean, personally, it's something that always annoyed the hell out of me in any kind of sport with somebody grabbing hold of you, because in it, you know, it's restricting you. I thought the BBC commentary was rather funny about did that stop him from getting a clear jump? Well, if you've got somebody weighing 12 stone hanging off you, you know, not too many guys can jump vertically with somebody 12 stone hanging on to them. So in answer to that question, yeah, it was restrictive and therefore it was a penalty.
Yeah.
What I thought was quite interesting about that, though, about what the Dundee manager said, is that that's like 2 weeks in a row now. We've had managers coming out and sort of implying that there's some sort of dodgy stuff going on in some ways. You know, people seem to now, because of the sort of narrative that's been allowed to go with this, Rangers getting all the decisions talk. I've had that for years, obviously, but it seems to have picked up again quite strongly this season. The managers are now, opposition teams are now sort of feeding into that as well. So it's Robson last week sort of saying that, it doesn't look good for the game when Rangers are getting last-minute penalties given to them. And then this week, the Dundee manager is almost implying that the VAR team are only showing images that sort of back up the claim that Rangers should get a penalty. So that, to me, is a bit of a concern in terms of the way, just in general for the game, but specifically for Rangers, because it's obviously Rangers that are being the brunt of this. But, you know, to start having this sort of almost conspiracy theory stuff starting to seep into the mainstream now and becoming part of what managers are using as their sort of justification, because they know that fine well that, you know, that people will pick up on that and that will sort of disguise things, or it'll help their case in the future when the contentious decisions are coming up when they're playing Rangers.
Imagine the cheek of it though, Ian, that the VAR team use images that actually shows why they made the decision.
Well, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like turning up in court and you know, an offence having taken place and not bringing any evidence along with you. Just by hearsay, you know, we'll suggest to you this is what happened. Of course,
what you don't see in that CCTV picture was just before I smashed the window in. Somebody lifted up my arm and pushed it and made me throw that brick through the window. Well, that's it, exactly. But to me, the decision was one of these things that could have gone either way. In fact, in the past, it would never have been given at all. Whether it should have been or not is another matter. But, you know, that's where we are. And, you know, that you just have to, you know, managers have spent the last 10 years complaining about decisions, well, the last 100 years complaining about decisions, but specifically about wanting technology brought in to make these decisions. And you know fine well, or you knew fine well, that as soon as they did that, you would just find something else to complain about. So, you know, to try and sort of justify their own positions.
Yeah, Iain Stewart mentioned there about the kind of shot pulling in the box and how that kind of has always been something that's annoyed him. Is this kind of era of VAR now, defenders are going to have to sort of defend differently from corners? That they're not going to get away with that anymore. They're going to need to just cut that out essentially, because they now know that previously when they would have got away with it, they're now not getting away with it. So is that going to essentially make defenders have to defend differently in those situations?
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying there. That this has been run for years and hasn't been getting picked up. Usually, doesn't get picked up or didn't get picked up by the referee. And yeah, they are going to have to change how they approach it, because potentially they're not going to get away with it anymore. There's been a few this season where penalties have been given for shot pulling, and that's the rules are the rules, and if you're going to get caught, then you have to rethink how you go about things. Shot pulling's one thing. I mean, over the years, we used to get guys being grappled to the ground, arms round them and pulled to the ground, and quite often they would never be given as penalties as well. So there's a lot more, and as it should be. I think there should be more. The defenders shouldn't be allowed to do that, because strikers always get pulled up for it, whereas if they ever do it, defenders quite often get away with it. So I think that it levels up a bit.
I also think. Sorry, Brian. I also think that the fact that guys are being penalised for this now, it actually shows you how poor the defending is. If you actually have to grab a shirt as your first sort of reflex or defensive movement is to grab somebody's shirt, it means you've not been doing your defensive job in the first place, where you've either gone with the guy or you've blocked the runner. So I think what you're actually seeing is there's more shirt pulling, because you've got so many defenders who are absolutely desperate to try and literally keep hold of their man. So I think maybe the standard of the defending isn't up to scratch.
Yeah. The one that always annoyed me is when you see defenders defending at a corner and they're grappling with the attacking player, not even looking at the ball, but they've got their arms all over the attacking player. That's the one that's kind of always annoyed me. So I think in this era of VAR, you're going to probably see a lot more penalties given for situations like that.
Exhibit A, Gary Stevens against Paul Elliott at Celtic Park in 5 successive corners. I don't even think Gary Stevens know whether the corners actually was actually taken at the time or subsequently. He never looked at the ball or where the ball was coming from. All he did was basically eye up, Paul Elliott, and was almost like a linebacker, that he was basically going to block his run or stop him from getting anywhere near the ball time and time again. So it's been happening for a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's something that VAR's definitely shining a light on. Now, 10 minutes before half time, Sima gets the third goal with a powerful header from direct from a corner. Stewart, were you as surprised as I was to see us scoring from a corner? Because it's not something we've been doing a lot of lately.
Not surprised, in as much as I think the potential's there. I don't think historically, or in terms of history, Rangers are anywhere near as good as they once were. I mean, it was almost at times it was akin to a short corner at hockey. Rangers got a corner or a free kick anywhere near level with the penalty area. You go back to the days of free kicks being taken by, like, say, Tommy McLean or Davy Cooper and pinging it on at the head of a striker, be it Derek Johnson or Ali McCoist or Mark Haitley and the likes, then there was a fair chance that Rangers would score. I think Rangers actually carry the potential of scoring goals and should actually carry more of a threat, given the height in the team, and also the fact that I think in Sima you actually have a guy there who is a tremendous athlete. I think the goal and the amount of power he generated from that one, it was a well placed corner kick, but the fact that it was well placed and he sort of had half an idea where it was going this time meant that he could actually generate a lot of power from not only the jump but also actually plant his head through the ball, and it was a really good, a really well worked and a really good goal. So yeah, I'm surprised that they actually don't do it more often, but I think that might be sometimes to the quality of the actual set piece itself.
Yeah, Iain, on Sima himself now, he seems to have hit the goal trail again after a slight dip around a month ago. Do you hold out any hope of us being able to keep him beyond this season?
Well, I guess it all depends on how Brighton feel about him and whether they want him back, which there's no sort of sign that would be the case at this stage, and B, whether they've got any interest from anyone else. I suppose if anyone else is looking at it and thinking he's doing quite well up there, we'll maybe take a punt on him. If it's somebody in England, chances are we won't be able to afford it. So I think the last time I was on, we were talking about him in the same sort of way. I said, let's see how things are looking by sort of January transfer window and see how he's progressing there. Bright start might not necessarily mean that he'll last out for the whole season, but he's continuing to do well. So there's maybe something that has to be thought about, and depending on who else we look at bringing in, if there is any other alternative options at this stage. The other question is whether or not we would be offloading players as well. So I think a lot of that will be a factor in what we can afford to pay for him. But the problem is the better he does, the more demand there's going to be for him, and the more difficult it's going to be for us to compete with that, because we struggle to compete with the big guns for players. So at this stage, I don't think things have really moved on in terms of whether or not we'll be able to get him or not. But I mean, at this stage, it certainly looks like he would be a really useful addition to the squad on a permanent basis.
I think the point that Iain makes there is a really good one, because week on week he's actually producing his own showreel. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
and people, other coaches and managers will be looking and seeing what he does. And the thing is, he scores goals against Scottish clubs. Yeah, okay, but he's also a guy who actually looks the part playing on a European context. Unfortunately, you might say in Rangers' case, because all that does is attract more attention, because he's actually playing at a higher level and he plays in European competition. So therefore, people will see him against better opposition, and therefore the goals that he does score or his contributions will matter more. And I think, the kind of money that Brighton might be talking about is one that would be maybe scare Rangers off, because what is a major transfer for Scottish clubs, any Scottish club, especially in Glasgow these days, is basically the money that Championship clubs or others would find down the back of the couch or in their loose change from a Friday night out.
Yeah, I seem to remember us having similar conversations last season about Malik Tillman, and I do wonder if we see a kind of similar result, albeit with this one we don't have any option or any pre-agreed fee or anything to buy. So
I think the other thing as well is mentioning Tillman is whether or not the player actually wants to come to Rangers permanently. He's saying all the right things right now, and we'd expect him to say that. But who knows, if he gets his head turned by someone else, then there could be a more, as he would see it, more attractive options out there that he might want to go for. So there's lots of factors involved, really. I think at this stage it's probably still a little bit early to be guessing how it would pan out.
That's a very good point that Iain makes there. Actually, it's not as if these boys are suddenly have come from Wisher Juniors or somebody like that. You know what I mean? These guys are their starting point is pretty high. In the case of Tillman, you're playing in the Bundesliga with arguably one of the most successful clubs in European football. In terms of Sima, he's got a gig with a team that are playing exceptionally well in England's top flight. So the starting position for these guys was always higher than playing for Rangers, so to speak. So again, I'll be interested to see what level of ambition that these guys have got, because if it's fine saying, "Well, really, I love playing in front of 50,000, and I love playing for Rangers, and I love scoring goals, and I love Glasgow and all the rest of it." Somebody comes in and says, basically, we'll add an extra 100 grand onto whatever you're making a month for going elsewhere. Suddenly, Glasgow and Ibrox and Rangers is a bit less attractive, perhaps.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out at the end of the season. Hopefully, I would be all in favour of keeping him. I think he's obviously done fantastic, and I think he's only going to get better. I think if we can find a way to agree a reasonable fee with Brighton, then I think he's one of those that you could make a profit on in the future. So I definitely hope he stays. Now, just on the stroke of half time, was probably one of the most controversial moments of the match when the ref was called over to VAR again to review a challenge that Cifuentes made on Dundee player. Both players appear to be going for the ball. Cifuentes is late and he catches the player. And I'll be honest, having seen it back a few times, I'm still not sure if I agree that it was a red card, but the referees obviously reviewed it and decided to award the red card. I think having initially booked Seamus decided that it's worthy of an upgrade to a red card. As I say, I'm still not convinced, to be honest. Stuart, what did you think of the decision?
Whether it was at Ibrox yesterday or in the general context of Scottish football, I think if there is a potential red card situation and the referee is called over to the screen, that is his get out of jail card. He can then proceed and pull out a red card and send somebody off, whether he actually thinks it's a red card or not, because he's covering his backside, because somebody else on high has thought it was worthy of a second look. Therefore, he's probably thinking, I might have missed something here, and I'm quite enjoying this job that I've got as a top referee. Therefore, I'm going to deliver a red card because somebody else thinks it's a red card, not just me. So I see decisions being made now which are as much of the time as anything else, whereas before they would never have been looked at in a dozen years, 100 years. Somebody might have looked at them, twice or three times on a TV replay in a TV studio, trying to make a story out of nothing. But it's almost like putting it down to these things happen in football these days. Sometimes you'll get away with it. Most times, I say, if the referee's summoned to television, you don't get away with it. And I think everyone knew what was going to happen as soon as that, took place yesterday.
Yeah, the thing for me, Iain, was that I don't really know why he's been called over for me. I think if the referee's given a yellow card and he sticks with that, I don't think there's loads of people calling for that to be a red card after the fact. I didn't think it was that being obvious an error. What did you think?
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we come back to that phrase being obvious. I mean, the referee was pretty well positioned when you watch the footage of it. He was standing quite close to it. He had a fairly good angle on it as well, I think. So he must have seen it and judged that not to be a red card worthy challenge at that point. I didn't know he'd given him a yellow card at the time because the play sort of continued.
When he gave the red card, he gives the signal as if he's cancelling out a yellow card. Right. So that's what made me think he'd actually booked him. Because when he goes it back today, I noticed that he gives the signal as if he's cancelling out a yellow card.
In which case, you think, well, he saw it. He thought it was serious enough to give a yellow card to. In which case, you would think he must have seen it quite well. Then, is that such a clear and obvious mistake? I mean, it's not like nobody's looking at that, as you say, and thinking, "My God, he nearly snapped his leg into there." It was a. I mean, you could, because he went in and his studs landed on his legs. Quite often these days, that is going to end up as a red card, and you can talk about intent and malice and all the rest of it, but probably that's not really a factor. The factor is it reckless enough to give? And there's a debate to have by that, but the referee's had that debate in his head, presumably when he gave the yellow card, and he's decided no, it wasn't. It was worthy of a yellow card, and that's the rest of it. So we're getting back to this stage where we're refereeing games twice, almost. So the referee's making a decision, and then someone somewhere is saying, "Well, no, actually, I don't like your judgment on that one." It's not like he's missed the incident. They're saying, "We don't like your judgment on that. This is what we think should be the case." And I know they're not explicitly saying that. They're saying, "Come and have another look at it." That's what's implied, isn't it? So if he's been told to have another look at it 99 times out of 100, then he's going to go with the decision that the VAR is sort of implying. So yeah, so that's my take on it. Is that I just think we're now at the stage where every decision now is being judged twice. Once by the referee on the pitch, and then at the same time by somebody watching on the screen, and I'm not sure that's really healthy for the game.
Yeah, and the referee, and you're right in everything you've said, the referee did have a really good look at it, and was confident enough to give him a yellow card. Well, what happened after that is you've got somebody else sitting watching the rerun and think to themselves, actually, maybe I could take this up a notch. And as soon as he does that, you're getting a red card. I mean, the whole thing about football now, decision making has been taken out the hands of the referee. Given the arguments, going back 20, 30 years ago, the discussions and some of the arguments that players would have had with referees, and I would never have seen the light of day unless the referee told you what was said or the player told you what was said. That's all gone now. You could say one thing, think another, and somebody in a box somewhere is basically saying, "No, you've got that completely wrong." So you're in the lap of the gods, and I'm not sure what the percentage is, but I don't think that. I think we're into point something of a percent. The chances are of it being overturned, or the referee basically shaking his head saying, "No, I'm not listening to you in this one. I got it right."
I think one thing to say is that when it comes to Kevin Clancy, it's probably a good thing that the decisions have been taken out of his hands, really, generally speaking, because when he makes the decisions, it's probably the wrong one. So, maybe this is a good thing.
In terms of that re-refereeing of decisions, is one of the problems with VAR that the slowing down of the images that they're showing the referee, and it just makes it look a lot worse than it actually is in real time. I've heard suggestions, I think it might have been Jamie Carragher that suggested when he was commentating DPL that they should actually only show it in real time, because when you slow any challenge down, it makes it look a lot worse than it is. And I thought yesterday was a perfect example of that, is that in real time it doesn't look that bad, but when you slow it down and you freeze frame it, it looks a lot worse than it actually is.
Listen, it's I refer to something like this on TalkSport, and Paul Ross gave me an entire history of how freeze frames and the slowing of action in the movies came about. And we're going back to the days of spaghetti westerns and Enter the Dragon and all the rest of it. It always looks, terribly dramatic if you slow it down, and 10 times worse than it actually was. And, I think the worst thing that you can actually come across is when the referee runs across to the screen and the fact they put a freeze frame up of somebody's leg buckling under them, and it looks as if you've tried to amputate somebody's leg with an Adidas size 10, when in effect, I think, if you ever slowed down somebody doing the pole vault or somebody doing the triple jump, you'd be rather squeamish at the images you saw on the television. And I think that's what's happening with football now. They're picking out the best shot or the most dramatic shot. It's I think I referred to it one night as it's the equivalent of frame 313 from the Zapruder film, and John F. Kennedy. If you want to get the most dramatic picture available, that's the one that you freeze it on. And in football, you've got somebody who's picking out the best shot and basically trying to, again, they are turning up in court with the best possible evidence for you to change your decision or for them to prove you wrong. So I am not a fan of VAR full stop, and even less of a fan of people who pick out selective frames to make it look as dramatic or as brutal as possible.
What's the motivation for that, though? That's what I don't understand, because it's not in the interest really of the refereeing world to be questioning decisions that have been made by referees on the pitch, really. So why would they want it? I mean, I can understand why maybe the TV companies they want the drama, they want all the controversy, the debate and all the rest of it. So I can understand why they would be focusing on incidents like that and picking the most damning sort of freeze frame or replay or angle or whatever. I don't get where the VAR people are coming from on that front. Why would they want to do that? It baffles me that they would want to create a situation. They've got nothing to gain by a player being sent off or whatever. It's not, you could have as many conspiracy theories as you like, but generally speaking, I think they don't want that to be the situation. So why did they do that? To me, it's baffling. It's almost like they're sort of moving on and they're putting themselves in the position that the TV directors now and thinking what makes good TV or what makes good picture, what are they going to be debating at half time, and we'll try and sort of get in before they can have that debate. So we're on ahead of the game or something like that. I really don't know. I don't get it.
Everything you said there, I said to a former referee about no more than 2 weeks ago, and his reply was justification. They're basically justifying their positions. So if they sit there and they don't see anything and somebody questions it, they might not get invited back the following week. And given the fact that this is a sizable part of their income, they want to make it look as if they're doing a job. So it's in effect, it's justification. They want to justify their role, and therefore the evidence that they produce or the footage that they produce has to back up what they're thinking at any particular moment in time. The referees, former referees, are appalled by it. Absolutely appalled by it, because I won't mention who it was or mention any names, but they said you could actually tell by how brutal a tackle had been on somebody by the noise that they made when boot connected with bone sort of type thing, and they knew then that was a kind of brutal tackle, and or you could actually hear the thwack of leather in somebody's thigh, but it was just the fact that it was a slapping noise, and they would go on with it. Whereas I think now it's like, even if the referee sees that, he's thinking that somebody else has got a better view of it. So it's all about justifying their position and making sure they get invited back in a week's time to do the same thing all over again.
Just the last word on that as well. I don't, talking about noises, I didn't get anything, but I don't think the Dundee player did Cifuentes any favours either, where he's rolling around in the ground as if he was in mortal danger of having his leg taken off. I don't think there was much in the way of contact, and I certainly don't think it justified him to be rolling around the way he did. But I mean, I suppose that's the way it goes now.
If somebody gets you properly, you don't have the compulsion.
Don't move, exactly.
You don't move. you're, as you used to say, you're stookied. I can't remember Soonest connecting with too many people who rolled.
Not many rolled around.
Maybe did a double, a reverse, somersault with Pike, but they certainly didn't roll around once they hit the turf.
Now, Iain, as things stand, with a red card, Cifuentes will be suspended for next weekend. The Rangers obviously have the option of potentially appealing it, which Malone said they would assess and decide on in the coming days. So I guess we'll wait to hear more on that. But as things stand, he'll be suspended for the League Cup final. Now, looking slightly ahead to that one, that really leaves us threadbare in midfield options, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that sort of said earlier about the injury situation. I think, midfield is one of the areas where we're I suppose everywhere we're struggling a little bit with injuries, but midfield certainly seems to be the area that we're hit by most. So we've got Lawrence out, and we've got Jack out, obviously, as well. I don't think either of them are likely to be back soon. So, yeah, I don't really know what the options are. I don't know if Leon King's maybe an option to play in midfield. I don't know. Heard him playing there before. Sterling again. I mean, he played okay yesterday when he came on. One mad rush of blood to the head where he lunged in the edge of the penalty area and then had a really good shot near the end of the game that hit the post. So he's a sort of mixed game, I guess. But I mean, I suppose he could do a job in there as well. But yeah, it's a struggle, and that. And I definitely think, whether it'll be worth it, there should be an appeal, just on the grounds that nothing ventured, nothing gained. But I think the chances of that being overturned in the week before a cup final is very, very slim, to say the least.
Yeah. Can't see it being overturned myself, to be honest. In the second half, the manager made 2 changes at half time. McCausland and Sterling came on, and Matondo and Cantwell went off. The manager said in the press conference that they were both tactical to sort of compensate for the fact that we were down to 10 men. Sure, the second half, I actually thought we created the better chances. As Iain said, Sterling had that shot off the post. I think Dessers went through one-on-one as well. and a couple of other moments where we could have even added a fourth. But the thing that kind of impressed me most, and I don't know what you thought, is did we see a bit of a different side to this team in the second half in terms of they seemed to just dig in, and there was a lot of determination there to limit Dundee's opportunities, even although we were down to 10 men.
I think it's a part of the same kind of factor I mentioned earlier on when they went a goal behind and, they couldn't make pretty shapes and try and get the first goal and then hang on. They actually had to get themselves into the game. And I think when they went down to 10 men, I think there's a realisation that they would need to be a bit of unity in the performance. And, rather than sitting back and thinking, well, I don't want to pick up any strains or injuries or that because there are a couple of important games coming up. I think they did get stuck in, and hence the reason why in doing that and putting that extra bit of effort in, they actually looked as if they almost did create another couple of chances, another couple of goals. So I think it was a case of, we're a man short, we need to show a bit of gumption here, and they duly did. So I think that's why the performance level went up. I also think Dundee, watching the entire game back again, I think there was an element of Dundee thinking that Rangers are down to 10 men here, we've got them. I think it was almost like psychologically they thought that they had they had a numerical advantage, but I think they thought there was an advantage as well just by Rangers going down to 10 men, and that this Rangers side is a bit soft. And I didn't see that. I thought that Rangers galvanised and Rangers pulled together and get the job done. Hence the reason why they actually created they weren't just hanging on, they actually created a few chances as well. So all in all, I think the second half performance is one that the manager will be pretty pleased with, if only because the substitutions that he made actually worked.
Yeah, now, Iain, we'll quickly touch on the result earlier in the day, and you're sure obviously a positive result for ourselves. For you, does that really put us right back in this title race?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think at one point, I think we all felt that this was probably beyond us this season, but we've already had one, I wouldn't say blown up one opportunity, but Celtic slipping up last week, certainly we were taking advantage of that and didn't fully take advantage of it. Luckily, it was the other way around this time. We'd already taken advantage of it before they slipped up, so that made things a little bit easier, but we're effectively, in theory, 2 points behind because of that game in hand. You hope we would be able to win that game in hand, and then that's the next Old Firm game. We win that game, we go top. Or we go ahead of them. So we're basically within one game of one win of coming. So yeah, clearly we're back in the run for the title here. It's in some ways quite surprising. I think if we'd left it any longer under the old regime, I think it would have gone beyond us, because I don't think we'd have put them together like we've had in the last couple of months. We're basically undefeated under the new manager, so I don't think that would have been the case. So I think for once the board deserves some credit for acting relatively decisively and making a change when they did. So I think everybody was saying at the time, we need to act now, otherwise it's going to be too late. So yeah, so that's proven to be the case, and we're now easily within striking distance, and we have to win that game in hand, obviously. So we'll see how that pans out. But it's looking more promising than it was 2 months ago. Let's say that.
Yeah, it's definitely looks a lot more promising now than it did a few months ago. Now, massive week ahead for Rangers. We've got obviously massive tie on Thursday away to Betis. We need to get some sort of result to ensure qualification into the next round of the Europa League, and then follow that up with the small matter of a League Cup final on Saturday. Stewart, is this a potentially season-defining week?
In some respects, yeah, but actually, it is, I would say, maybe a defining week if only for the cup final. I think putting the European title to one side, great if you get through, absolutely. But I think it's one of these ones where there could be a win or a decent result in one of these two ties, and ultimately disappointment if you don't actually complete the entire package. So yeah, it's a big week. Midweek Europe, you're looking for a certain standard or a certain level of performance in Europe. The factor that both you guys have mentioned earlier on there is just what kind of team or what kind of squad of players you'll have for the European tie, and then if you'll still have the same squad of players for a mid or a weekend game. There's demands at any time of the season, but this week, if you're down to the boards currently and you've got two games ahead, what do? You have to put your best team out both sides because you desperately need to win both of these matches. But it's trying to get a result in Europe with having a mind on what you're doing at the weekend as well. So I think this is going to be a massive test, and therefore, a pivotal week on a couple of fronts.
Yeah,
I think it's. Sorry, I think it's an important week. I don't think it's necessarily season defining, but I think if we get a decent enough result in Spain, as long as I'm not really too fussed one way or the other, but if we get a decent enough result, then that's great. But the key thing, as Stuart says, is the cup final, because winning a trophy at this stage would be a massive thing for the rest of the season. I think if we go out there and lose that final, I think that's going to have quite a detrimental effect on the squad and the general sort of atmosphere around the club. So the opposite is true as well. So if we go out and win on Sunday, then that could really set us up for the rest of the season and give that extra impetus to go into the sort of Christmas period and really step up a bit. So it's a really important week. At the end of the day, what's going to define the season is how we do in the league, I think, and that's going to be the most important thing. But I think this could certainly be a contributory factor to that.
In terms of the game on Thursday, does that safety net of dropping into the Conference League, does that kind of remove some of that, I guess, anxiety around that game for Rangers?
That's kind of what I was getting at there. I mean, I don't like to say, well, I don't mind if we lose and we go through, because that's kind of a bit of a negative way to look at it. But that is the case. I mean, and to be perfectly honest, dropping in the Conference League, you can argue all the time about the quality of that, but it's when you look at the teams that are going to be in the Europa League next stage that we're potentially going to face, and then you look at the teams that we're potentially going to face in the Conference League, we can easily have a good run in the Conference League, maybe emulate what we did in the Europa League a couple of seasons ago. So, in some ways you could argue, maybe in the same way as you could have argued last season, that we'd have been better in the Europa League than we were in the Champions League. I suppose it comes down to money in some ways as well, because there's a sliding scale of how much cash is involved. But, I think that is a factor, is that there is that fallback position.
I think whatever tournament you play in, you're playing clubs of a similar standard. If you see what I mean, I think if you slip down to the conference, you're not suddenly going to come up against Real Madrid, or you're not suddenly going to come up against Manchester City. You're playing against teams who have either started off in that tournament or have slowly progressed down the way from a bigger tournament. So you are going to get presented with clubs and teams and ties that you can possibly win. So I'm with Iain and Tyler on that one. If they get through, great. If they don't, you might have more of a chance in Europe. But ultimately, I think domestically, you're looking for a trophy, and historically, so many times the League Cup has come to the rescue of Rangers during barren spells. Go back to the early 70s and Derek Johnson's goal against Celtic, and what Rangers then kicked on to do in the next couple of years. Similarly, in terms of in the 80s, Rangers were regular winners of the League Cup, and it was something that they almost kept possession of during that time when they weren't that great in the league. But you don't really remember the league performances or finishing third or fourth or fifth in the league, because you were breaking it up by winning the League Cup, which everybody remembered, especially if it was against Celtic or Aberdeen or the likes.
Stuart, in terms of the match on Thursday, now Spain's obviously notoriously a difficult place for us to go to. We've not got the best track record against Spanish teams. Obviously, we won the home leg against Betis, but we know they're a good outfit. We know Spanish teams are technically of a kind of high quality. The manager's obviously not got many options in terms of changes to the starting 11, but how do you think he'll set the team up? Are you expecting many, if any, changes?
I don't think he's got many players to select from. If he was getting in there with a squad of 25, you might say, yeah, it's sort of horses for courses sort of type thing. He might go defensively simply because he's got more than one defensive midfielder. As it stands just now, he might have a centre half playing next to a defensive midfielder just to have two in midfield. You just don't know how he's going to position the side. He could go out there with an attacking lineup and get absolutely hammered, which I don't think he'll do. I think he's quite pragmatic that way. But I think it's going to be down to what happens during the course of this week. We also don't know, even though we know the players that are missing through injury and who the long-term casualties are, we also don't know how difficult or what the outcome of the game was yesterday in terms of guys that are carrying niggles and carrying knocks. Be sure he ain't going to gamble with anybody on a Thursday if you're playing a cup final again on a Sunday. He ain't going to suddenly say, I need 60 minutes out of you in midweek because we need a performance and you'll be okay for the weekend. You could play somebody for 60 minutes and not see them again for 3 months. The way the injuries are going this season. So do I see any surprises? The only surprises I think that will be there is if he's having to play somebody either out of position or bring somebody in, and that might work to his advantage. He could bring somebody completely, King's name was mentioned earlier on. If he's fit and available, he could come in on Thursday night and have an absolute worldie. Somebody that you don't expect. He could come up with some master plan of deciding that Tavernier is going to play in a 3 in midfield, on the right side of the midfield, and it works well. And all of a sudden you've got another maybe problem, or you might have actually cured a couple of problems for the cup final. So I think it's down to numbers and who is fit and available. Take one step forward, because if you can do that, that's you showing your fitness. You may get a game.
Yeah, we'll finish on this. But one of the things that's impressed me about the new manager, and Stuart mentioned the injuries there, but when he spoke about the injuries and the press conferences that he's done, he's clearly frustrated by it, but he never looks to use it as an excuse. And one of the lines he said post-game in one of the interviews yesterday was that he kind of said, it's on me to come up with these solutions. I'm the one that's got to find the solutions to these problems. So it's always impressed me that no matter how bad the injuries are getting, he never seems to use it as an excuse.
I think some managers, different managers have different approaches, but I think some managers, I wouldn't say they necessarily enjoy having injury problems like that, but they quite look forward to the challenge of coming up with solutions to solve these kind of problems. So he's maybe one of these managers who can say, right, well, let's come up with an idea. Let's look at their team setup, how they play. Maybe we have to think about how we're going to challenge that and bring in somebody a bit sort of it's unexpected or whatever. And I think some managers do enjoy that kind of challenge. I think he would much rather have his full complement of players there, and that's a different challenge of deciding how to set your team up. But yeah, I think he has impressed me actually. I wasn't really sure if I didn't really know a lot about him beforehand, but I kind of knew of him, but I wasn't really sure what kind of manager he was going to be, or what he's like. He's so far so good. I mean, he has come across as being quite a pragmatic is a good to describe it, but he seems to have settled in quite well. Seems to have understood what is required at Rangers, and that's been a downfall of quite a few of his predecessors, is that they don't really understand that winning is everything. That is what it's all about, and that he seems to have grasped that quite quickly.
And the fact it looks like a Rangers manager, not a used car salesman, that puts him quite. That puts a big tick in the box for me. But no, I think Ian's point is hugely valid there. The fact that he's actually the guy. I think, given his past experiences, it's not like he's been a reserve team coach here or a number 2 here, and he's actually had to do it previously at different clubs, so knows what it's about to actually win. And I think he's got that kind of mentality that's actually starting to get that message through to the players that it's all about the winning. It's not about how many passes you can make, what your possession stats are, and all the rest of it. It's getting the ball into the back of the net. And if anything, get back and sort of rewind a wee bit here. The first goal that Rangers scored yesterday, it was like, bang, there's the ball in the box, do something with that. And that was something that you just know you would not have seen a matter of months ago when Beale was a manager.
Yeah, he's definitely a born winner. I think that's fair to say about the new manager. Right, I think we'll call it time there. All that's left for me to do is thank my guests. Ian, thanks for joining.
No, pleasure. Enjoyed it as usual.
Stuart, thanks as always.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to get through it uninjured.
And we're all glad as well. As well as being live tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher. And we'd ask that you leave us a rating on your preferred podcasting app. We'll be back on Friday evening to look back on Thursday's match and look ahead to the cup final. Until next time, bye for now.